everyone, and welcome to the NFL discussion. I'm your host and NFL enthusiast, Doug and Doug. In today's episode, I'm going to be discussing Sunday Championship Round 2024 edition. And ladies and gentlemen, the Super Bowl stage has been set. It will be a rematch of Super Bowl 54, I do believe. Kansas City Chiefs versus San Francisco 49ers. What a exciting championship round this was. And with that, we're going to get right into the action, starting with the Kansas City Chiefs. And give credit to Steve Spagnuolo here. He schemed up his scheme for this game, shut down Baltimore's offense, and also Travis Kelce as well set the postseason record for receptions. So yeah, just a great performance from the Kansas City defense, and a great performance from Kansas City from Travis Kelce, who basically was the offense for the Chiefs here. And no team provided an answer for Lamar Jackson and the Ravens offense for most of the last 2 months, understandably leading most to believe that they would continue their march of another spectacular showing in the championship game. That message failed to reach the Chiefs defensive coordinator, who stuck to his signature pressure-heavy style and instructed his defense to go on the attack. Kansas City blitzed 20 times and posted a pressure rate of 37, sending rushers to fill every escape lane for Jackson and shutting down Baltimore's vaunted offensive attack. The results were beautiful: 4 sacks, 3 of 11 on third down, 10 points allowed, and a dominant showing in time of possession. Instead of Jackson slicing and dicing through Kansas City's defense, the quarterback looked lost and rattled for most of the game, none more so than when he tossed a pass into triple coverage and had it picked off. The Chiefs simply don't win this game without the performance from their defense that didn't get discussed enough entering the weekend. However, expect that defense to be talked about a lot in the 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl. And Baltimore's defense appeared positioned to shut down Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City's inconsistent offense. However, they didn't account for Kelce's postseason excellence, and as I talked about, he was the Chiefs' offense in the first half, and pretty much throughout the game, catching all 9 of his targets for 96 yards and a touchdown to take another lead. When Mahomes and the Chiefs needed a big play to keep their early drives going, Kelce came through on multiple occasions, making a few acrobatic catches to move the chains and find his soft spots in the zone covered. He won his matchup with Kyle Hamilton and wasn't afraid to be the aggressor and talk some trash. And when you're backing up your words with your play, yeah, you can do that. It was only fitting that Kelce was the last player to speak on the celebratory podium at the game, one in which few gave the Chiefs more than a fighting chance. So yes, the Chiefs, it was an up and down season for them. Their offense was very inconsistent and often at times looked very much broken, but their defense, I think, really played a part in keeping this team in helping this team out. And then when it came to postseason time, it's like they just flipped the switch, and well, lo and behold, here they are in the Super Bowl back-to-back years. So for all the talk about how much of a struggle it is to make the Super Bowl in back-to-back years, the Chiefs just kind of shrugged that off, and now they're looking to be, I think, the first back-to-back champions since whenever New England last did it. Baltimore Ravens. Todd Monken, offensive coordinator, picked a bad time for a bad game plan, which resulted in the offense letting down the defense. So Baltimore's offense put away Houston a week ago by pounding their defense into submission via an unrelenting ground game. But on Sunday, well, there was no ground game for the Ravens outside of 8 runs from Lamar Jackson. Baltimore would run the ball just 8 times for 27 yards, abandoning that element despite trailing by no more than 10 points throughout the game. Gus Edwards only had 3 carries in the game, which made no sense. Even in obvious rushing situations, Monken opted to pass, and that unbalanced approach put far too much on Jackson's shoulders against a defense designed with the intent to harass him, and the results forced plenty of Ravens fans to look away, especially when Jackson kept trying to chuck the ball downfield, and well, he certainly missed a few of those throws. And when Jackson dropped a pass in an increasingly desperate fourth quarter, Kansas City got pretty comfortable and dedicated 8 defenders to blanket every target, with the understanding that it wouldn't need to account for the run. Jackson had a bad day, yes, but as offensive coordinator, did him 0 favors. Monken has a lot of explaining to do after this one. I wouldn't say it was a job-costing performance, but certainly I think it puts them on the hot seat going into next season too, because the Ravens had such a great regular season, and then you had a good showing in the divisional round, and then this is what you do in the championship round. That's tough right there. Baltimore's defense surrendered an opening drive touchdown against an offense directed by renowned designer scripts and a renowned designer scripts and Andy Reid. But otherwise, the Ravens did more than enough to win on the defensive side. They stood tall in a sudden change situation following a fumble deep in Ravens territory from Jackson, and were able to limit the Chiefs to a field goal on another drive that seemed destined to finish in the end zone. Defense coordinator Mike McDonald recovered from a rough first half by adjusting at halftime, and his unit gave up just 98 yards and allowed the Chiefs to convert just 3 of 8 third down attempts in the second half, buying the offense plenty of opportunities to counter when possessing the ball. Baltimore's offense, however, didn't hold up its end in the bargain. A disappointing end to a great season, and also to those who were expecting to those Ravens fans and anyone else expecting Jackson to offer another heroic performance and finally make the Super Bowl, especially in the first year of that huge contract that he signed. But instead, that is not to be. So it was just, in the end, it was not the Ravens' year. It's interesting too. You think about all the quarterbacks that got paid this offseason. I think there were 4 of them: Jackson, Hurts, Herbert, and Burrow. None of them are in the Super Bowl. Isn't that interesting? But yeah, Baltimore, again, don't take it away from them. They had a great season. They played like the top team in the AFC. But in the end, got reminded that it's actually Kansas City who is still very much the top team in the AFC. So definitely going to have to remember that going into next offseason. What about defensive coordinator Mike McDonald? Well, I would expect him to take either the Commanders or the Seahawks job. If internet reports I believe, then it's probably more so the Seahawks job than anything else. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Mike McDonald ends up taking a head coaching job, which would be unfortunate for Baltimore losing a great defensive coordinator. Detroit Lions. So Dan Campbell made some interesting decisions in this one, and as a result of those decisions, well, this loss is going to sting. So the 4th down decisions made by Dan Campbell on Sunday will be put under the microscope, and it's fair to discuss them, but don't overlook the fact that the Lions reached the NFC Championship game by being stubbornly aggressive throughout the season. Campbell's team prided itself on winning with toughness and determination until Sunday. It largely worked in their favor. They iced their wildcard win over the Rams with aggressive calls and never let off the gas in their division round win over the Buccaneers either. On Sunday, Josh Reynolds dropped a couple of catchable passes and Jared Goff failed to get the ball to Amon-Ra St. Brown in a situation in which a field goal would have tied the game. It's fair to wonder why a field goal wasn't attempted, but a kick, especially one attempted by Michael Badgley, is far from guaranteed. And if either had worked in Detroit's favor, the discourse would be different. As is the case with every analysis of a 4th down decision, the outcome ends up outweighing the logic by a significant margin. This will again be true when Campbell is criticized for his calls, but take note that this criticism comes from a place where hindsight is factored in. A sudden shift from aggression to conservatism is usually a result of a coach thinking that he might be losing his job, so he's got to change what he's doing to preserve his job. And Dan Campbell just doesn't have that mindset. Neither do the Lions, and or that mindset of changing who you are just to preserve your job. And unfortunately for them, it didn't work out in their favor this season. But don't expect Campbell to change his ways, because he probably won't. He already has too many reasons not to. So yeah, you can talk about the calls and everything else, and certainly some of them were questionable, especially when you factor in hindsight. But it is what it is at this point. I will say this. Even factoring out hindsight, should have gone for the field goal. I understand going for it and 4th down is your thing, but when you have a close game like that, especially in the championship round, those 3 points would have been huge for the Lions. Think about it, if they had gotten those points. They scored a touchdown to close out the game. They scored a touchdown in their final drive of the game, so could have potentially tied the game there. But like I said, it is what it is with those decisions. You can talk about them all you want, but it doesn't change anything. And after say it. Sunday's game, no, that's not it either. There we go. Looking for my next set of notes on the Lions. And while you can point to the fourth down decisions as the reason for the Lions' defeat, look instead at Detroit's inability to tackle. The number of missed tackles in this game was huge and contributed directly to the 49ers' ability to climb back into the game and then salt it away. After Purdy scrambled a handful of times for back-breaking games, you would think that there would have been a spy dedicated to him on crucial downs. And well, they tried Alex Anzalone in that spot, but his poor pursuit angles resulted in Purdy picking up, but a poor pursuit angle from Anzalone resulted in Purdy picking up 21 yards on 3rd and 4 and the game's most important possession. And when McCaffrey received handoffs, Detroit rarely took him down on first contact, allowing plenty of additional yards after contact to keep San Francisco's offense moving. The difference in offensive production from the first half to the second half is noticeable, and that blame falls squarely on Detroit's defense, which repeatedly lost the game on the margins. Brandon Ayuk's 51-yard catch was an example of this, as was Jack Fox's 74-yard punt, which bounced perfectly for the coverage team to down inside the 5, but instead got caught with a foot in the end zone for a touchback. The Lions didn't do the little things right throughout this game, and it cost them much more than a couple of fourth down decisions. So despite this loss, still a great season for Detroit, and perhaps maybe a sign of things to come, although their offensive coordinator Ben Johnson might be out the door. So how much, and if he does leave for a head coaching job, what does this offense look like under new offensive coordinator? San Francisco 49ers finally clear the hurdle of a legendary comeback, and Brock Purdy steps up again to help his team win. So after falling in each of the last two NFC Championship games, San Francisco was on a mission. This wasn't just about defeating Detroit to reach a Super Bowl, it was about succeeding where they previously failed. And when the Lions took a 24-7 lead in an emphatic fashion, things weren't looking great. It looked like Kyle Shanahan's team for a third straight January would be going home, but San Francisco preserved, wiping out the 17-point deficit, seizing the opportunities afforded by turnover on downs and a takeaway in opposing territory. And in the blink of an eye, the 49ers tied the game at 24. Their confidence morphed into good fortune, and the 49ers rode it to a scoring drive ending in a go-ahead field goal, a fourth down stop, and a dagger of a 7-play, 70-yard drive capped by a Christian McCaffrey run to set up an Elijah Mitchell touchdown. Once the wheels started rolling on the 49ers momentum train, there was no stopping it, and they're now going to ride that train all the way to Las Vegas and return to the Super Bowl, where they'll meet a familiar foe in the Kansas City Chiefs. Brock Purdy steps up again to help his team win, and Sunday's game was about as close as we'll ever get to accurately defining Purdy as an NFL quarterback. Some of his risk hurt him, like throwing a pass into a closing rusher's hand, resulted in an interception, but others paid off in fashions that seemed exclusive to him. Think about the long completion to Brandon Ayuk that probably should have been intercepted, but instead deflected off the defender's face mask. Purdy should have been sacked right in the fourth quarter, but broke out of it and found Kyle Juszczyk for a toe-tap completion. And there are more examples of such instances, but in the interest of time, we'll move on because it wasn't solely about luck for Purdy, as he ripped off a couple of crucial gains with his legs, just barely evading tacklers in the process, threw a beautiful touchdown pass to Brandon Ayuk on the run, and handled the pressure of a high-stakes playoff game with credible poise, even after entering halftime facing a 17-point deficit. Those who have watched the 49ers all season know Purdy has guts. Sunday wasn't merely proof of this, it was vindication, even if it certainly wasn't perfect. And lastly, to touch on the 49ers offense, let's give a shout out to Christian McCaffrey for being the engine of this 49ers offense and powering them to victory as well. People can say all the negative things they want about Brock Purdy, but Christian McCaffrey, again, engine of this offense, and Brock Purdy being the expert driver that he is, able to steer this team in the winning direction. San Francisco's going back to the Super Bowl, and they will look to see if they can beat the Kansas City Chiefs this time around. The biggest difference from the last matchup to this matchup is the X factor that is Christian McCaffrey. Will that make the difference? I guess we shall see. And with that will conclude this episode of NFL Discussion. Thank you so much for listening to this longer than intended episode. And if you enjoyed it, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button down below.